Hello and welcome to Healthy, Fit, and Pain-Free Pittsburgh. I'm your host, Ryan Wade, here with Dr. Tyler Bordick.
What is going on, everybody?
And today we are talking about we want to help the people pick the right fitness facility for them in 2021.
Yes.
Right? We know that COVID has brought a series of challenges. Nobody needs to keep saying that. I feel like I get the douche chills whenever I say that. It makes me, when I say
a lot of uncertainty.
A lot of uncertainty, unprecedented times, the new normal, all of these things make me want to cry. However, basically, we know that this episode is going to be coming out whenever you're listening to it. It should be coming out the last week of December. And every year, there's with New Year's coming around, everybody wants to get in shape. You got the New Year's resolutions. But this year, with the pandemic, I believe yesterday, just in communication with members and people in our private group, I think I heard everything from the COVID-10 to the COVID-20 to the COVID-40 to the COVID-100. And it's like, well, which one is it? It doesn't really matter. The bottom line is that people are going to, need to get back to focusing and prioritizing their health.
Yeah.
Right? And something that every year makes me cringe is seeing people that basically, for no fault of their own, select the wrong fitness facility for them.
Yes.
Based on their goals, their personality type, how much personal attention they get. And they become just so discouraged by exercise and fitness,
or they get injured,
right? And there's so much, it just causes this downward spiral and just makes the issue worse. And being in the fitness, world, right? I hate to see it, right? Because I'm a coach, I want to help people, right? Like you're a doctor, you want to help people, and we are here to help people just get back to being healthy, fit, and pain-free. How about that? And so today is not to bash on any gym. It is not even necessarily to promote any gym. It is to simply explain the differences so that you, the listener, can understand the differences and make a better informed decision on what is the correct type of fitness facility to get you the results that you want, because they are not all created equal. Right? And I think something that people may not think about, nor should they, I think that it's really, not really a focus that many people should have, but not all gyms are looking to get every single person in the door, right? I think the best ones are the ones that know who is the exact person that they help to the greatest extent.
Yeah.
Right? And they try to focus on those people. Right? And so I think our goal today is to realize that if you are that person, hopefully we can connect you with that facility. May or with or without, may or may not be us.
Yeah.
Right? And so basically how we're going to do this is, if I can give you a little structure so you can kind of draw it out in your mind, is that we have written down a bunch of categories of fitness facilities. And we have the kind of the pros and cons, and we're going to give some examples of what these facilities are. And then we're going to talk about, what goals and maybe what personality types resonate with those facilities the most, right? Mm-hmm. Being in the fitness, field, me now for going on 13 years now, right? I've been to most of these places. I know a lot of the people that own these places, right? I've worked, I've trained, I've gone to certifications with people going to all these that work at these different facilities. I've probably worked with a lot of these people that work at these facilities, right? And I think that just being in this position, I want to be able to help people just match it up, right? And so, without further ado, we'll just kind of jump right into it, unless you have something you wanted to add.
Nope.
Okay, awesome. Let's do it. So, first one that we have is, I think, the one that is most associated in people's minds with, the word quote-unquote gym, right? And that is what we call a big box gym, right? Which is to say, corporate run, financially invested backed, equipment use facilities, right? Something like an LA Fitness, a Planet Fitness, right?
A Gold's Gym.
A Gold's Gym, right? You walk in, you pay a low monthly fee to be able to use the equipment. And the reason that it is set up like that is because equipment has less risk, not no risk, right? But it's harder to have bad form on a machine because it's a fixed plane of motion, right? As opposed to a free weight where you need to have adequate core strength to be able to balance the loads, right? And so when you're looking at a big box gym, right, the pros of that are there's a lot of options in there, right? You can't get bored, right? And you can pick and choose whatever you think looks cool. And if there's
probably a ton of TVs.
There's probably a ton of TVs, right? There's probably most of the times there's like a sauna, a pool, right? Childcare, right? And so if any of those sound appealing to you, a big box gym might be the way to go, right? Doc, what's maybe a downside to a big box gym?
So downside, really, I mean, granted, some have personal trainers, so you could pay for a personal trainer there, and who's to say how good the personal trainer actually is, there, so I'm not judging by any means when I say that, but typically when you go in there, it's just you, so you have to try to figure out what you are going to do, you don't have anyone programming for you, and you have to figure out what equipment to use, and from my experience and people I've talked to, a lot of times there's not someone who's going to actually show you how to use all the equipment and be there to show you how to use all the equipment. So you kind of just got to look at pictures and figure it out. So, the risk of injury or just like risk of confusion can go up, I guess.
Overuse, jumping in too far too soon,
drowning in the pool,
lack of accountability, right? All of these things may fall under the cons. And for those of you at home, I have been restricted from talking about the cons too much to these facilities. Doc is going to take that over for me. And we're not here to talk about horror stories. We're just here to give the facts on these, right? And so, who do you think that these kind of places are right for?
So, I mean, a lot of these places are, if you're someone, so like for instance, I guess I was kind of this way. Like back in school, if you're someone who's fairly knowledgeable, know what you want to do. Especially if you're a college student or you're a high school student, you have very low budget, then it's someone, and all you do is you just need the equipment. Then I think it's a good place for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think basically the number one person that this is meant for is a very budget conscious person, right? A very you don't want to break the bank on the fitness. You can't break the bank on the fitness, right? And we understand budgetary restrictions, right? And so this allows people a place to go and get healthy on your own with limited guidance, right? And Planet Fitness, say what you want about them, but $10 a month, everybody knows it, right? And so it's definitely a place that benefits a lot of people in that way. Now, go ahead. You have something?
No, I was going to move on. I was going to move on to our next option.
Sure.
I should have something else to say.
Yeah, basically, again, I just want to really point out that, I think that whenever you go to a big box facility, you should have some level of education on exercise and form and just basically how to ease yourself into exercise.
Yeah.
Right.
And, and I mean, this can be a dangerous route too, but I mean, you can always research this stuff before you go do it. Now, granted, God knows Dr. Google's really good. But sarcasm. So that's just something to consider as well.
Sure.
But anyhow, so on to the next one. So it's kind of a similar, just a little bit more of a small scale. And so we consider this to be like a small box gym.
Yeah.
Okay. So a small box gym is very similar to a big box gym, except this is typically like a local owned gym.
Yeah, it's like a mom and pop big box. It's smaller square footage wise. There may be less equipment availability, but still, it's you go in.
Less TVs.
Usually, there's a lot of TVs in them. But you walk in. You basically pay a low monthly fee to be able to use the equipment in the facility. Right? The treadmills, the ellipticals, the bikes, the machines. Right? That kind of place. There may or may not be personal training in these. And when we say personal training, we mean you get an undivided attention of a trainer for a reserved period of time. That is basically the standard definition of personal training. there's a lot more variables that you should consider, and I think we'll get into them as we go down the list. But just know that personal training basically means that you get the attention of a trainer and doesn't promise you anything more than that.
Yeah.
Okay. Now,
pros and cons are very similar.
Pros and cons are very similar. Yeah, I mean, low budget, open access.
I would say one pro to like a small box is, depending on the owner, you might get a little bit more of a personal feel. Now, I'm not going to say you're going to get more personal attention, but again, it's just like a small town. You know, they might know your name better.
Mm-hmm.
Like you might get just a little bit more of a homely feel.
The owner might be working the front desk.
Yeah.
Right, and he may just be there because he likes to shoot the shit with people during the day. Right, and that's great. And I think right now, if we can give anything, we can give more attention to local small businesses.
Yeah.
So, local places, being as though we're in the West Hills of Pittsburgh, kind of out towards the airport, somewhere like PA Fitness West is like what I'm talking about here, right? And we're going to give a lot of free advertising out to local small businesses today because when Tyler and I were talking about doing this topic, we wanted to help you, the listener, pick the right place that's for you. But we also talked about that, being who we are and seeing, since the second quote unquote not a lockdown has been imposed, the lockdown on small businesses, not Target and Walmart, right? I think a lot of the attention is fairly or unfairly placed on the restaurant business when it's affected the service business as a whole, and it breaks my heart to see places like PA Fitness West that's been around forever, right, struggling to get people in the doors because they have so many restrictions placed on them.
Yeah.
And so hopefully if you fall into those categories, I would encourage you and I would hope that maybe you would give places like that mom and pop small box more of an opportunity than an LA Fitness who's got unlimited deep pockets.
Sure, yeah.
Right? Moving on to the next one. Or sorry, yeah, I mean, we talked about who's it's right for.
Yeah.
It's basically the same people,
thing, yeah.
right? And if you like that hometown feel and you want to walk in somewhere with people to know your name and care about the community that you're in, I think right now is a better time than ever to do that.
Yeah.
So moving on, we have our personal training studios, okay? And we talked about personal training, right, and what personal training is, which again is basically you get the undivided attention of a personal trainer for a reserved amount of time, okay? And so a personal training studio is I'd say typically an under 1,000 square foot studio facility, right? Typically with free weights and bands and sleds and just free weight equipment.
Yeah.
Essentially, you're going to utilize your body weight and you're going to strengthen your whole body and you're going to get that undivided attention of the trainer, right? Typically in these personal training studios, these are not cookie cutter programs that you're getting.
Yeah.
We would hope and we think that most of these places are providing more of a personalized, customized solution. The personal training studios do a very good job of meeting with you to talk about your goals and your limitations, and setting you up with a program that is designed for you to only progress and not regress.
Yeah.
Right? Doc, what might be the downside to a personal or a con? Sorry, I don't want to put a negative spin on it. A con to a personal training studio.
So instead of me picking on the studio specifically, so let's look at personal training as a whole. And this is
I like that better. Yeah.
We'll kind of go down the list here. Is the problem with personal training I run into is the barrier to entry in the personal training field. We've talked about this before. Is very minimal. You can be someone who literally goes on the internet and over a weekend gets a certification to become a personal trainer.
Yeah, I've seen like 30-minute quizzes.
Yeah,
right.
And
give you a letter behind your name. It's awful.
And it's unfortunate because you are dealing with people's bodies. You are dealing with their health. You are dealing with people under load. And so if you don't have the proper background, that can create havoc for almost anybody. So the big thing when you find a personal trainer is you want to, and we talked about before, you want to ask them the right questions. You want to know if they're credentialed. You want to, kind of get the feel of what they're going to take you through and why, and really make sure they tailor it to you specifically. So if you have someone who's, a 35-year-old dad who's just trying to get back in shape, who used to be a fairly heavy lifter back in the day, and he walks in and he has his interview with them, and then he walks out, and you're a 65-year-old, a 65-year-old grandma who's just trying to finally get her life back in her years because she doesn't have any. She
spent the rest of her life taking care of everybody but herself.
Yes.
Yeah.
If she walks in and they tell her the same exact thing they told him, that is a problem.
Red flag.
Yep. So that's all I'll say about that is just try to keep, understand that with personal training, there's a few and far between.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And, I think I don't really have a really good example of a local place like this, but I think a lot of personal training studios are kind of named after the owner, named after the trainer, right? Whenever you walk in, it's like the trainer and maybe one or two other people, right, in there. And so, you might, whenever you're inquiring about this service, I think a lot of times somebody might get put off because they call to get more information and nobody answers the phone.
Yeah.
Right? It's because it's one person working with clients and also trying to run their business at the same time. Right? And so they may get back to you a little bit later, but if you want something kind of more driven towards your goals, more personalized, customized to you, and you want that person to be the person for you, right? You don't want to be given to other coaches that you don't know, right? Then something like this may behoove you. And I think that I would just caution patience when you're inquiring on something like this, because if these are the kinds of things that you want from your fitness experience, with a personal training studio, it may just take a little bit of patience in the initiation process of getting on the phone with somebody because, again, these are good people running small businesses, trying to make it work, and they're trying to wear a lot of different hats while training people is the core primary service and kind of their, what they're all about. They also need to make time to grow their business and to help more people. And so they are answering the phone and they're training people and they're posting and trying to market themselves and they're trying to network, right? And it just caution patience with this and trust that these people are trying the best and are there to serve you.
Yeah. So the next one we talk about is what can be called a boutique gym. And so a boutique gym is kind of like your fitness studio. So these are like your cycling classes nearby where like that's all they do there, or your row houses. I've seen a few like ski or climbing. Climb.
Sure, climbing gyms, boxing. Not like the art of boxing, but just like the fitness part of boxing, right?
Stuff like that. Even yoga and Pilates you could maybe throw in here too. But basically like boutique gym to where they basically just do like one thing inside the gym that you pay like per session to go to.
Mm-hmm. And I think with the more prominence of just healthy lifestyles in general in younger demographics, right? Millennials and Gen X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
These are becoming more and more prominent. There's more and more popping up kind of every day. Again, these are usually venture-backed corporate type studios, right? Where there's going to be a large turnover in staff among time. And they are not all, I won't clump them into one, but they're typically range from about $20 to $40 a session. Right? And so what they're going to do is whenever you go in, they're going to talk to you about it. They're going to talk to you about what they do, and they're going to talk to you about the environment, and they're going to talk to you about your goals, and then they're going to say, okay, these are our options per session, right?
Yeah.
And there's only, I think the pros of them are if you live in a cold weather city and you like to row or you like to bike, right? And you want to be active and do these things, right? Or you like a group environment, or you're more competition driven. There's usually like a leaderboard, and they got fun music, right? And it's just like you can kind of go into these places and lose yourself in the recreation.
Yeah.
Right?
And they're really a creature of habit. I mean, if you're a creature of habit too, like if you're someone who doesn't really want a whole lot of variety, like, you don't want to start off the path too much. You just want to like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, I want to go to my class, and I want to walk in, do my class, an hour later, walk out, and that's it. This also a good, and that's why like what Ryan was saying, young professionals, this is always a big thing for them because they got so much other shit going on in their life. They don't have to think about their workouts. They go in, they get it done, they leave.
Yeah.
So,
and it's exactly that. And I think this year, amongst all years, even though it was happening before this year, a lot of different companies have tried to bring the boutique studio into the home.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm not going to drop names because they don't need any more of the business during this time. But it's basically, it's just that, right? Go lose yourself for a half an hour to an hour in some sort of repetitive motion that you can go and jam out to music and see where you are on the leaderboard and push yourself and, go from there.
Yeah. I would say the only con with this is exactly what Ryan just said, is repetitiveness. And this is not just like with those boutique gyms, this is with anything. You're just constantly doing the same thing all the time and not really having any variance in your way of working out your schedule. It can potentially lead to some sort of overuse injury. So that would be like my one big con there. And just realize too that now, fitness is a three-dimensional thing. It's about mobility, it's about strength, it's about endurance, it's about prevention, it's about just overall wellness of mind, and you want to be able to consume all of those within your fitness realm. So if you're not doing that within your boutique sessions or whatever, you should be doing it outside.
Sure.
So I at least caution you with that.
Yeah, and some people just like more variance.
Yeah.
Some people like super consistency, right? I know exactly what I'm doing. I know when I'm doing it. I know how it's going to go, right? Some people want to be surprised and have more variance in their experience. And so if you're somebody who likes that consistency, then the boutique fitness is definitely probably a good way for you to get started. Next, we're going to dive into, we're going to classify this as niche fitness, right? And so
big umbrella here, but yes.
Big umbrella here. But when we're talking a niche, we're talking, and this kind of blends in with boutique a little bit, but we're going to get away from like equipment usage, loud music leaderboards, right? We're going to get into how your mind works, right? And so we're talking yoga, Pilates, more in this category than the last one. We're talking CrossFit. We're talking powerlifting, right? Doc, do you maybe just want to touch on those three real quick and kind of just give us an overview of what they are?
Yeah. So like yoga, Pilates, I mean, if you're looking at these, so yoga is just basically there are sessions that has to do with both embodiment of mind, but also mobility and balance. Mm-hmm. Kind of into either a flow, or there's some like power yoga where it's a lot faster flows, or even hot yoga where you're doing a hot room.
Yeah, there's a lot of variance on these too, but it's more of a mind, body, spirit connection to exercise, I think. Yeah. It's kind of a good way to put it.
Pilates, I always say, is kind of like yoga with weights. That's kind of my way that I'm going to put that one.
Weight thingies.
Yeah. And then there's other contrast, but Pilates is mostly based around strong mobility. That's kind of like how they advertise. CrossFit, I'm not really sure how you describe CrossFit.
I can describe CrossFit. So, CrossFit, it's a lot harder than I thought.
I know, right?
So CrossFit is most often, I'll put it this way, most often a large group free weight exercise class, right? Where you'll go in and it's built a ton around something CrossFit does really well. Community, environment, friendships, socializing, right? If these are important to you, CrossFit's great, right? But the way that it typically goes is like you'll go in, you'll do a little bit of like individualized stuff, like work on your weaknesses, improve your strengths, right? And then you'll finish out with a longer workout that they call a WOD, or a workout of the day, right? And basically it's a series of exercises with predetermined weights and distances and intervals where you're trying to beat your own personal best time, right? And so it also incorporates competition and leaderboards and music and things like that as well. Those are all, really, really good things that I can think about CrossFit, right?
And there's other gyms that do things similar to like a CrossFit. So for those of you who don't know, like CrossFit is actually a trademark name. Mm-hmm. So, there's other gyms that do like a functional, quote unquote, functional style training. And basically, it's just you were trying to embody both the endurance aspect, but also the strength aspect, and create a fully developed cross training, hence CrossFit athlete.
So, I mean, an example of these places, they typically have CrossFit in the name. I think in the last maybe 3 years, it started to really trend away from that because to have the CrossFit name, you have to pay the licensing fee to CrossFit headquarters. Right? And so a lot of maybe you might have noticed that there was a CrossFit at one location. They're no longer called CrossFit. It may have been called Premier CrossFit, and now it's called Premier Fitness. Right? And that's basically just saying we don't want to pay CrossFit for us doing all the work, right? Because they're not getting enough benefit from that, right? They have their own in-house certification that they do. Not saying whether it's good or bad, but there's different levels to that, and it's within a corporate structure. Also, CrossFit's come across some scrutiny in the last year for reasons we don't need to go over, but a lot of people also, I know, dropped out from the license because of that.
And then other ones are like powerlifting, Olympic lifting. Not really going to go into this too much, but these are just barbell sports that have squat, bench, deadlift for powerlifting, and then have clean and jerk, and then snatching for the Olympic lifting. But
yeah, it's more of a hardcore lifestyle. Right. Both CrossFit and powerlifting, Olympic lifting. I think all of these they're iron sports. Right. They're all very similar. They pick and choose different elements of each one that go into CrossFit. Right. But they each have like their own sport as individuals. Right. And so if you're somebody who likes to focus on one element and you're skill driven, right, then that's kind of something that you really want to focus. You would like to improve on a skill, right? Maybe you're a former martial artist or something, right?
So actually, good segue there to what my next part. So I would say with like niche gyms, the pro is the con. The pro to like with these is you get really good at the sport because you are specifically training that. And depending on what you're doing, like CrossFit, obviously there's consumed of a bunch of different things thrown into one, but with each of these, if you do yoga, you're going to get really good with mobility, with balance, and with potentially peace of mind. Pilates is very similar. CrossFit, powerlifting, Olympic lifting, you're going to get, you're going to get strong, you're going to get powerful. With CrossFit, you're going to get a sense of endurance. The caveat to that, though, is because you are getting very good at those things, you are probably not very good at other things.
They're on extreme ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
For sure.
The other pro is that they do embody a culture. That's great because, like Ryan said, there's there's a sense of family, there's a sense of group, gym camaraderie, if you will, that you gain out of that because a lot of people go in there. However, the caveat to that is, if you are not someone who has a similar mindset of that culture, you will not fit in well. And I'm not saying that's all the time, but unfortunately, if you walk into if you love the squat, bench, deadlift, and you walk into a powerlifting gym, but you really like pop music and you hate dirt and dust and chalk, you're probably not going to like the powerlifting gym you walk into.
Right.
And so it's just that's just kind of comes with the terms.
It's the lifestyle that goes into it, and I think one more caveat to add to it, because I think a lot of people just don't think about it, maybe just want to ignore it. With iron sports, injuries are part of the game.
Yeah.
Right. Sure. It's going to happen. It's like signing up to play football, right, or NFL football at least. Like when you sign up to play NFL football, you're signing up to get injured.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's the thing, I'm a barbell athlete, I'm a physical therapist as well, and to say that I've never been injured would be complete bullshit.
Yeah.
I've been injured before too, and I know what I'm doing, it's just sometimes you just test your limits.
It's all about breaking your personal record.
Yeah.
In most of these things, right? And when you push the limits, you overreach.
Yeah.
And so it's just part of the game, right? And so I would encourage people that if you want the camaraderie, the lifestyle, the consistency that brings to you and the structure that brings to you, right? A lot of people really want more structure in their lives or desire or need more structure in their lives. These are really good things to get dedicated with, right? Because it's something they're sports.
Yeah.
They're sports. And so they are recreation and fitness built into one.
Yeah. And as far as cost goes with these, it's a wide variety. yoga and like Pilates can kind of fall into like the boutique, what we talked about earlier. Powerlifting, it depends. I mean, you're looking at like a $60 to $100 a month membership maybe, and then
CrossFit's usually the 100 to 100 to 200 a month, typically.
So, just to give you guys an idea, so you don't walk in there and like, what the fuck?
Right, and again, in CrossFit, it's typically going to be more of a larger group, right? I think, let's just put it this way. If your gym membership is under $200, you're typically signing up for something with at least 20 people in the session.
Yeah.
Right? And that's just, and I'm talking business here, and I don't want to mix fitness and business together, but if your gym is charging you less than $200 and they're not taking about 20 people a session, like I'm saying $200 a month, and you're getting 8 to 20 sessions a month, right? If they're not at least charging $200 a month, they're not going to make it very long.
Yeah, or it's just because they have so many members there that's why they're charging that much.
That's correct as well. There's a lot of pros and cons, and we don't need to dive into the whole bunch of financials. But I would say, like, when you're looking at investment in yourself, right? You got to kind of realize what the investment is equal to, right? Because what you're getting is not just the service, right? But it's also the quality, and it's the consistency, and also the longevity of that business providing the service for you. Because if there are lots of gym owners, be it as it may, that don't have any business background or education, right? And they go into it for all the right reasons, to help people get healthy, to make an impact in their community, right? But without the business sense of being able to allow yourself to run an operation that allows you to continue to spread that impact, you don't accomplish the goal.
Yeah.
Right? So, okay, moving on.
Yep. So the next one is a corporate-backed HIIT, so high-intense interval-based facilities. So this could kind of be similar to boutique. I mean, you can kind of throw these in the same, but this is going to be a little bit more of your, like, an Orange Theory, to throw a name out there, just because it's a well-known name. But these are your classes that you're going to go to, where it's a very, like, you go in there, there's a set rest to work interval, and they already have everything laid out for you.
It's usually everything's kind of automated,
yeah.
Set up on like a timer. It tells you exactly what to do. There's like lights that point you different places, right?
And you just go.
Right.
And you just you walk in, session starts, you go for a half hour to 45 minutes to an hour, and then you walk out, and that's it.
Yeah, typically not an hour. I think they typically go about 30 to 45 minutes. And again, this is like the Orange Theory is a big name. The Fit Body boot camps, the Burn boot camps, all these different things. And again, just kind of backing up what Doc said, it's like you usually have 2 different exercises for a set amount of time and rest, and then you do those maybe 1 or 2 times, and then you switch to the next one. Right? It's very fast paced. Keep going. Usually 1 trainer to 10 to 40 or 50 people in a session, right? And so the pros to this, right, is very much like the boutique, right? You want to go in, put your head down, go to work, sweat, burn your lungs up, leave feeling with all kinds of good endorphins. Awesome.
Yeah.
Right? That's your place.
Workout.
What's your cons?
Cons, so exactly like what Ryan said, you have like 1 trainer to multiple people. And so whether that's trainer good or bad, I mean, honestly, if you put me in front of 20 people,
we all become a babysitter.
Yeah, you just try to make sure that everybody gets out alive.
Yeah, and you're a safety officer. I shouldn't say babysitter. Well, what are babysitters other than safety officers?
Yeah. So, but that's the thing. Excuse me. You just, hard to keep track of everybody. So you will see like injury rates go up a little bit more, especially because if you have people who come in who don't have a lot of experience, but their friends like, oh, I went to this place. It gives a great workout. Mm-hmm. So you go there. You don't really know what you're doing. The trainer's not really going to spend a lot of time with you typically because there's so many other people there. And so that's typically what I see is just a higher injury rate if you are more of a novice,
sure,
workout person.
And in comparison to, say, the personal training studio, right, there is going to be very little to no level of customization in this, right? There's going to be a predetermined exercise. Maybe you can pick your weight on a kettlebell that you're using for a certain exercise or something. But there's going to be very little room for personalization, customization, scaling, modifications, things like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on to the next one, we have your training gym. Okay, and so this is kind of how this facility started. So this is very near and dear to my heart. And I have my circle of friends is almost 100% created of people who own these gyms. So this is a soft spot in my heart, especially this year.
Yeah.
So I've watched too many of my friends go down this year. But in the training gym, typically what you're going to see is the large group and the small group training, right? And so these are mostly private-owned gyms, mom and pop run. They are personal trainers who want to expand their reach to be able to get as many people healthy and in the best shape of their lives as they can. They do a high level of customization for small group person. They usually have, I'll break down typically the options. A large group is typically comprised of one trainer to 15 to 40 people.
Yeah.
Okay. A small group is going to be one trainer to about 6 to 12 people. Okay. They'll call it semi-private, is typically one trainer to up to 4 people, 1, 2, 3, or 4 people, families, groups of friends, things like that. And then you have your one-on-one private training, right? So this is where the training gym name comes from. It's all personal training, just at scale. Now the scale kind of falls into what are your goals? What is your experience level? What kind of limitations do you have, if any? And what is your budget, right? The lower the budget, you're going to have more people in your session, right? So you might pick the large group. And if you are somebody with a moderate training gyms, you're not going to find anything for under $100 a month, right? Usually not even under $150 or $200 a month. Maybe when you start to get into the large group. But in the large group, the pros, high energy, go in, put your head down, go to work. Simple exercises you don't need to think about with safe mediums, right? Typically a very knowledgeable trainer watching you. And if not more than one in large groups in those situations, right? They typically offer nutritional services, right? Or at least guidance at the very least, right? Small group, basically we're backing down the number of people in the session to be able to allow for more personalization, customization, to allow for more goal-driven result, right? And again, built for you, and you're typically going to be able to go at a pace appropriate for yourself, right? As you continue to get smaller, the level of personalization and customization becomes greater. The level of attention becomes greater. The level of accountability and check-ins and just being able to communicate with somebody who's there to basically be your shoulder to lean on becomes greater as you go from large group to small group to semi-private to private.
Yeah. And I honestly, I would say, again, kind of like I mentioned earlier, the con to this is kind of the pro. And it's not really even a con, so to say, but really with this is, there's a lot of accountability involved in this. Hence why it's an investment in yourself when you do these type of training gyms. So that's typically what people would say. And again, it's not a con. It's just the hard part is it is. You have someone now watching you very closely. You have someone who you develop a good relationship with. These people typically become somewhat friends with their trainer. Whereas, if you go to a boot camp or something like that, they're not typically, they don't really know, they just know their trainer's name and that's about it. Mm-hmm. And maybe he has a nice butt, but that's about it.
Sure.
But with these, it is. There's a lot more accountability. There's a lot more of a family and a
lot of community, a lot of communication.
And so it's a pro, but it can be a con because it's like dating someone. If you break up or something happens,
you've had a lot of time spent with that person.
Yeah.
It's very much, it feels like a personal relationship. Yeah. And being on this side of the, it's not really a desk in a gym. Being on this side of the desk in the gym, like the trainer feels that hurt in that breakup as well.
Oh yeah.
You know, like these people that run these gyms are good people with good hearts who are trying to spread health. And you'll see these kind of gyms doing a ton of great charity work, community work, trying to bring people together. And, you know, again, it's a long-term relationship. And whenever you, for one reason or another, life happens, it hurts on both sides.
Yeah.
And that's a negative. Also, a negative of this for some people, you could also be looked at as a pro, I think, is that typically the investment for a gym like this is going to be in the 200, depending on where you are, in the large group to personal training spectrum, you're looking at $200 to $1,000 a month, maybe more, depending on what is all involved in your program. High degree of customization and service, right? Which takes a lot of time on the part of the individual who's providing it and the staff.
And something else too, you know, and I'm not even saying this from our perspective. Well, I am saying it from our perspective, but not just from our behalf, but for everybody, you know, on this. When you go to a trainer, if you go to a credible, credentialed, experienced trainer, and you're paying a lot of money, and people, I heard this yesterday, and it always pisses me off. Is someone's like, I can't believe you get paid $125 to spend an hour with someone and tell them how to do push-ups. And that honestly is the most bullshit statement ever made, because what you have to realize is these people, for one, when they're not with you, they're either with somebody else or they're probably in the back researching, they are, reading, they're trying to keep their knowledge up, they're taking continuing education courses. And I'm not saying other professions don't do this, but what you see is not what most of that money is spent towards. Like people will say, toward the physical therapist, like, oh, I can't believe that I would pay you this much. You're not paying me for my hours now. You're paying me for the 10 plus years that I've put in to make sure that whenever you come into my office, I don't mess up and do something stupid with you and hurt you even worse.
Yeah, and you can probably hear the emotion in our voice a little bit more on this one than a lot of them. And that's because our facility is partly training gym.
Yeah.
Right? And again, that's our roots, is where we came from. Even Doc, as a physical therapist, has experience with lots of training gyms. Just being either a coach or he's a personal trainer, certified personal trainer as well, right? And so, again, there's a lot that goes into these facilities in terms of researching for you. And I'll just give one story to kind of, I think it pushes the point across of just how much people in this realm care. And I'm going to reference myself on this one, but it has nothing to do with me. It's just kind of to give you a behind the curtain look at the degree of like what these people are doing. A lot of these training gyms will offer both adult and athletes, young athletes type programs, as I did in my we still do, right? But I have a lot of knowledge of a lot of sports, being a strength and conditioning background, right? One day, an athlete came in to ask me to help him make basically the Olympic team. He was on the Olympic alternate team for sailing. All right, now I live in Pittsburgh. I don't know if I've ever met a sailor before in my life, let alone a 14-year-old who's almost about to make the Olympics, and he wants to entrust me on how to get him better.
Yeah.
All right? I think I watched nothing but sailing for a week to see the movements these guys were putting them through, to see the conditions they function in, to see, what are the exercises I need to do to program for that person. And this could be from this young Olympic sailor to somebody who's had double knee reconstruction and wants to get back to working out.
Yeah.
Right? These people, their highly certified credentials care a lot. They're going to put a lot of work in to what they do for you. Now, whether that is worth the investment to you or you have the means to make that work for you is another story. And believe me, I know, because I talk to a lot of these guys and girls that run these facilities, that when we can't offer a solution to somebody because of finances, it breaks our heart every single time. But for us to be able to provide for our families, keep the doors open, provide for our members that are already here and entrusting us in that, it's just something that we have to do. So please, if you want this service, right, don't be discouraged if that trainer or that training gym cannot provide that for you at a low cost like you would want. You got to know going in that you're willing to put up the investment to do it.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. Boot camps.
Kind of already covered this one though.
Kind of. So boot camps, there are facilities that are not HIIT facilities, that are not training gyms, like a Barry's boot camp, for example, or a Burn boot camp, for example, right? These are exclusively large group exercise facilities.
Yeah.
They are, I don't want to use the word functional, I hate that. Free weights, bags, sleds, kettlebells, medicine balls, bands, body weight type exercises.
Functional.
It's not functional. Well, you don't need to go on that debate. Regardless, the thing with a boot camp is that it's typically just a large predetermined set of stations, right? Where you're basically doing it for a set interval and going from station to station.
Yeah. With
1 to maybe 4 trainers, depending on the size, right? I think most boot camps are 30 to 50 people, right, at one time. And sometimes there's 1 trainer, and sometimes there's 2, sometimes there's 4. Sometimes you're going for 1 minute, sometimes you're going for 30 seconds. Whatever it is, they make the exercise. A pro of these is that, again, put your head down, go to work, get a good burn, get a good session in, safe exercises, typically with light weights, easy movements, right? So a low degree of education on how to work out necessary for this. Doc, what are the cons?
Cons, I'd say, would be the same thing as what we talked about with like the corporate back type of HIIT training. Is just, again, like Ryan said, you have a lot of people in the session, so it's very hard for all the trainers to keep a good eye on you. So the risk as far as like having someone watch your form, that does go up. So that's the one thing with those. Another with those is just, being around this one, and honestly, this goes with all the gyms that I mentioned, is the competitive factor. Now, I'm just as competitive as the next person. However, you get in that setting, your heart rate gets high, you start feeling really good, those endorphins start releasing, and you start competing with the person beside you, and it can kind of get you away from your own awareness and put you into a danger zone. Mm-hmm. So that's just like other things that take into consideration, whether it's, you might make it through that session, but either get injured or like the next day you just did way too much and it puts you in a hole. So that's not really so much a con, but that is something to consider whenever you're doing those type of sessions.
I will say one more pro, and this kind of goes for boot camps and training gyms, is that typically these people know their niche very well, right? It's usually like Burn Boot Camp, I believe, is exclusively, if not just like very heavily weighted towards like just women.
Yeah. Right.
And so going as well, so like a great example, the best example I know of is Mark Fisher Fitness in New York City, right? And they are very counterculture oriented, right? Like you walk in the door and there's like 2 dildos on the desk, right? Like, and it's for artists, Broadway actresses, actors, and anybody who's very open about their sexuality, right? And these people don't feel comfortable going into a standard gym. They feel put in a box, right? And so if you're somebody who really wants to be in a group of people, maybe you're looking at the social aspect of going to a gym as much as the health aspect of it. These kinds of options are probably going to be your best bet.
Yeah. Last but not least.
Last but not least is our category, right? And that is the
unicorn.
You can call it, so I call it a clinic gym hybrid. You can call it a healthcare gym hybrid, whatever it is. I think this is the way that training gyms are this is like the way that they're going to progress into the future, right? Is because one of the cons of a training gym is that they are not a physical therapist, right? They are not a chiropractor. People come to them to help resolve their pain issues, but they do not have the schooling to resolve all of those pain issues, right?
Well, and and like we talked about earlier, you hate to lose people, and I talk to a lot of trainers, and a lot of them, they say that the worst part is if someone does get hurt and they go away, you don't know if or when they're coming back.
Sure. And so a clinic gym hybrid typically allows for somebody with a very low level of workout education, complete newbie to fitness, right? Or somebody with a physical limitation, an injury, coming off an injury, or something like that, to be able to start their fitness journey in a very highly educated, specialized business or facility, right? To help them get that start in the education they need to be able to adopt not only exercise, but the lifestyle that goes along with it, stay accountable and consistent towards pushing towards their goals, because maybe they've never been able to push themselves past the point of like, this is exercise, I want to do it, and it kind of hurts, right? And also, that's the integration part. That's like the hybrid. The other side of that is the training gym and all the pros and the cons that go along with that.
Yeah.
Right? Doc, give us the downside to the hybrids.
So downside really...
There are none.
Yeah.
Joking.
Kind of, again, kind of going back to what we talked about earlier with the training gyms is, for one, I mean, it's going to be the personal investment, whether that's physically, mentally, or financially. When you join these, there is a high cost of time and effort that goes into it, a lot of commitment. And again, that's not a bad thing, but, if it's just like dating. If you're that person who you're just looking to swing around a little bit and just date and not really be committed, well, then you don't have to worry about paying for expensive dates and making all these plans and buying the roses and the presents. However, if you're someone who's looking for Mr. or Mrs. Right, and if you find that person, you have to put the time, you have to put the commitment, and you have to put the trust into that person, and that's what's going to develop the relationship. And that's the way this is too. You just have to put that time and effort into it, and just realize that you got to trust the process. Mm-hmm. And I would say that is probably the biggest con throughout all of it.
Sure. And I think, something that we didn't touch on, just to backtrack into the pros, is that typically there's a lot of different services that help you get to a goal in a lot of different ways, right? So currently at Inner Strength, we have physical therapy. We have return to fitness, somebody who's coming out of injury or therapy or a complete newbie and moving into fitness safely in a smaller group environment with a high level of customization, right? You have, we have our team of dietitians here who functions out of our facility. I know there's plans in the future for things like cognitive behavioral therapists and psychologists to be able to join our team, to help people who who have mental health issues, as I do. And I wish I had the availability, the wherewithal, and I knew that things like this existed whenever I was growing up, which I don't think they did at that point. But we look, places like us in the clinic gym hybrid space, they look at the mind, the body, call it the spirit, whatever you want to call it, right? The wellness, right? The recovery, your lifestyle, right? Having a dedicated health coach like we do to reach out to you on a daily basis, whether it's through a text or a phone call, whatever you need, to check in and make sure that you're doing okay and staying consistent. Don't have any questions about anything. Fitness and health can be so confusing. There's a lot of information, over-information, right? And this kind of facility helps people cut through the bullshit and get the answers.
And I think too, it really, kind of spin it back around. It really just comes back to the kind of person you are and what you are going to enjoy. So, for instance, if you come to Inner Strength, you are going to get a crafted, well-designed, laid out, modified if needed workout. However, if you're someone who you're like, I just want to go somewhere and get the shit kicked out of me and walk out with my lips dragging on the floor and not think about a single thing afterwards, then it's not going to be for you.
Right.
And
we know that different people have different paces.
Yeah, and that's the thing, and that's where I would say the other con is it can be very specific, but it's like that for a reason, no matter what gym you go to.
Mm-hmm.
So
right, and be it pro or con, we know who we serve best.
Yeah.
Right, and so you'll see a lot of pictures of our facility with women between the ages of 40 and 60 on there. Doesn't mean that's the only people that we serve, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just happens to be the people who, during the earlier part of their life, took care of themselves the least.
Yeah.
Right, and because they focus on everybody else, and that's why we mesh really well with them. Is because we're givers, we're healers, we're people. We want to serve people, right? And so there's a personality connection there that works,
sure.
right? And so again, doesn't mean that's the only people that we serve. Far from it.
Yeah.
Just means that like places like us know who they serve the best, right? And so if you want to be around a bunch of different people and you like diversity and not saying that we're not diverse culturally, right? But if you want you want to take things from power lifters and people who like yoga and whatever, and they all just happen to like biking.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's probably not the same.
Yeah.
Right.
I'd say that was pretty good.
I'd say it was pretty good. I think this is definitely one of our better ones.
Yeah.
So again, we were here today to help you make a knowledgeable, helpful, informed decision on where you want to take your fitness journey after the COVID and lockdowns and New Year's happens, right? We want you to start an informed health and fitness journey come this new year with resolutions and all that. Second one was to promote maybe some small businesses close to us.
Yeah.
And I know we didn't get anywhere near all of them. We tried to pick out a few examples. I'll just take a second to maybe list off some that I can think of. And so we talked about PA Fitness West. We talked about, obviously, us Inner Strength. There's Faster, and there's Without Limits Performance around us. There's Union Fitness, which is a big box and a powerlifting gym.
Yeah.
There is...
Pittsburgh Fitness Project in Lawrenceville.
Pittsburgh Fitness Project, Elevate Pittsburgh, which is a climbing gym. All the Soul Cycle bars, Mecca Fitness in the East Side, Mount Lebanon CrossFit, CrossFit Focus in Robinson, Angry Mike's Gym, which is a CrossFit gym that got rid of the CrossFit name, like we were talking about.
If you're up by the Mars area, all fit. We could go on.
We could go on and on and on. And so, while we kind of get a little bit impassioned in our speeches about these places, we didn't want to overlook the purpose. One of the purposes that we wanted to do this, which was to promote small businesses, because gyms are the service industry.
Yeah. We
are still in the service industry, and whenever we go and we look on social media, we see a lot of support for restaurants, but not a lot for our fitness brothers and sisters out there. Yeah. And so we wanted to use this as a platform to be able to promote them as well, not just us.
Yeah, and my final thoughts here too, if you're still listening, is even, I'll post this. Comment below on your favorite gym. And if there's a gym that you want to shout out to, you just want to tag in.
Please.
Please do. But honestly, this is like Ryan said, this touches very close to us. And, it's times like these we realize how much we truly need our physical, mental, spiritual fitness. And, don't ever take that for granted. And don't ever take for granted the places around you that are trying to make a living serving and giving to you to help achieve the exact same goal.
Yeah, it doesn't always come fast.
No.
Right? And that's kind of the value in it.
Yeah.
Is that we help you keep the course.
Yeah.
And, it's a lot of places you can see that the sparkly new necklace is worth a lot of money, right? But places like us and personal training studios, training gyms, boot camps, right? They put a lot of time and effort into keeping their members happy, consistent, right? And you don't always see it from the beginning, but these are dedicated people trying to get you where they want to go, and I think the value in that can't be stated enough.
Yep.
So that's it.
Yeah.
Kind of an abrupt end, but this episode of Healthy, Fit, and Pain-Free Pittsburgh is brought to you by every business that we just mentioned. See you on the other side.